detailing the events of Markarth Incident. What really happened in the Reach? According to the Thalmor dossier on Ulfric, Ulfric first came to attention of the Thalmor during the first war against the Empire while he was captured as a prisoner of war. Recognizing the potential value as the son of the Jarl of Windhelm, he was assigned to first emissary Ellen Wayne as an asset. During torture, he was made to believe that his information was vital in capturing the Imperial city, although it had already fallen before he broke. Subsequently, Ulfric was allowed to escape after the war. Then contact was re-established for some reason, where he seems to have proved valuable to the Thalmor. It also states that the death of Ulfric is to be avoided as well as the Stormcloak victory, and any aid to the Stormcloak must be managed carefully. With that, we can be sure that the Thalmors are puppeteering the Stormcloaks every chance they get. The Stormcloaks, led by Ulfric, were initially a militia composed of Talos-worshipping Nords, but they were not in an open rebellion against the Empire before the Markarth incidents. Therefore, it's not entirely accurate to claim that Ulfric formed the Stormcloak and initiated the civil war solely to appease the Thalmor, as this development occurred after the Markarth incident, and the Thalmor considered him uncooperative only after this event. The original White-Gold Concordat did indeed include a provision banning Talos worship within the Empire. However, it did not explicitly grant the Thalmor the authority to enter Empire territory and detain individuals at will. This action by the Thalmor is seen as a violation of Empire sovereignty. Tidus Smith signed the treaty with the expectation that the Thalmor would not have a direct presence in Skyrim, and the enforcement of Talos worship ban would be solely managed by the Empire officials. And that's a big difference, because that left the Empire some leeway to mitigate the terms of White-Gold Concordat. Basically, the Empire was supposed to ban Talos worship officially, but tolerate it in private. Although officials had to arrest the most prominent worshippers, it's pretty clear they were given instruction to do a piss-poor job at it as long as Talos worshippers remained discreet about it. And it's also pretty clear, for example, that General Tullius knows his legate is a closet Talos worshipper but doesn't care. Here's what Rika has to say when Ulfric is about to be executed.
Talos be with you.
What was that, Legate?
Nothing. Just saying goodbye.
Empire officials appears to be less than fully cooperative when it comes to enforcing the ban on Talos worship. Cities like Markarth and Whiterun still prominently display a statue of Talos, and Thalmor agents like Ondolemar in Markarth struggles to identify even one Talos worshipper without the assistance from individuals like the Dragonborn. Jarl Igmund in Markarth and Jarl Balgruuf the Greater in Whiterun don't seem to actively support the Thalmor efforts.
But mighty Talos was my keeper, my shield against the heresy of the South. If not for Talos, and the few modest bribes paid to the rancheros, why, I would not be standing before you today, resplendent in my faith.
While Heimskir, a known Talos preacher, is arrested in Whiterun if the Stormcloak fail to take the city, he is detained in Dragonscreech, however, rather than being handed over to Thalmor officials. It seems as though Balgruuf may have had no choice but to arrest Heimskir due to the peace treaty violation, but kept him in Whiterun to prevent the deportation, as handing him over to the Thalmor would likely result in his torture and even death. It appears that most Empire-aligned officials in Skyrim are not fully cooperating with Thalmor as expected. For example, Elisib, the widow of late High King Torik, secretly relies on Dragonborn to perform the Talos funeral rites despite her city hosting the Thalmor embassy.
There's something personal I was hoping you would do for me. Falk told me what you did for us at Wolfskull Cave. He says you're someone we can trust. As you may know, Talos worship is outlawed in the Empire. When we buried my husband, I made offerings to all the gods, except Talos. I would like you to take an item of his, a war horn handed down from his father, and place it at a shrine of Talos. Thank you. It would mean a lot to me.
This suggests that she may be in a delicate position, and it seems that many loyal to the Empire in Skyrim only take actions against Talos worshippers if they fear the Thalmor might discover their activities. Overall, there is a notable reluctance among Empire-aligned individuals in Skyrim to fully support the Thalmor's effort. This is confirmed from one of Albert's dialogue.
It's from that treaty that ended the Great War, remember? When the Emperor was forced by the Thalmor to outlaw Talos worship, we didn't pay much attention to it when I was a boy. Everyone still had their little shrine to Talos. But then, Ulfric and his sons of Skyrim started agitating about it. And sure enough, the Emperor had to crack down, dragging people off in the middle of the night. One of the main causes of this war, if you ask me.
There was apparently a transition period when the White-Gold Concordat was technically in effect, but not enforced in practice. It was Ulfric's action, it seems, according to Thalmor, which forced Titus Mede to actually enforce the ban. There's also another dialogue which seems to confirm this.
I lead the Justiciars. We are charged with enforcing the ban on Talos worship. We're making sure your Emperor wasn't lying to his elven masters when he agreed the Empire would give up false gods and foolish beliefs.
The Thalmor officials depend on the Justiciars to enforce this ban, and there is a sense that they suspect Emperor Titus Mede may not have been entirely truthful when agreeing to the treaty terms. The Markarth Incident played a pivotal role in this. As an Empire official, Jarl Hordil allowed Talos-worshipping Markarth, blatantly violating the treaty. If the Thalmor had discovered this, it would have likely resulted in increased Thalmor presence in Skyrim. The Markarth Incident was used as a proof that the Empire would only adhere to the treaty when forced to do so by Thalmor officials within its territory. The patrols of Thalmor Justiciars in Skyrim were not originally part of the treaty, but rather a later compromise to ensure the treaty's terms were upheld. And from the mouth of Jarl Igmund himself.
The White-Gold Concordat, our treaty with the elves after the Great War, forbids free worship of Talos. But that's what we promised Ulfric and his men. It seems foolish looking back, but at the time we were hoping the elves wouldn't find out. So when they did find out, it was either we arrest Ulfric and the militia, or enter into yet another war with the Aldmeri Dominion. The choice was clear, and now Ulfric threatens the thinly veiled peace we sacrificed so much for. When the Aldmeri Dominion invaded the Imperial City, the Legion all but turned a blind eye to the other provinces. Many of the disgruntled natives of the Reach used the opportunity to depose the Empire and founded what they called an independent kingdom. It was little more than a chaotic uprising, but the Reach was removed from Imperial authority for 2 years before we reclaimed it. But the leaders of the uprising refused our offers of peace. They fled into the hills and became the Forsworn. It all started here, this rebellion. When the Empire lost the Reach during the Great War, we became desperate. We promised a group of Nord militia free worship in exchange for their help retaking the hold. Then the elves found out about it. We were forced to arrest all of them. Ulfric Stormcloak, their leader, used the whole thing as proof that the Empire had abandoned Skyrim. The rebels called it the Markarth Incident. It was the founding day for the Stormcloaks, and where this war really started.
But one has to wonder why the Markarth Incident was considered beneficial to Thalmor. Surely it would have been in Thalmor's best interest to let the situation in Markarth deteriorate in order to weaken the province of the Empire. But instead, Ulfric allowed an Empire-aligned Jarl to retake the control of the city.
It's the whole reason Ulfric revolted against the Empire. Well, the first reason, anyway. Forsworn had taken over Markarth, and Ulfric and his men drove them out. Empire promised they'd be free to worship Talos afterwards.
We know that the Thalmor want the Skyrim Civil War to go on for as long as possible without either side really winning, as long as war weakens the Empire even further. So why didn't they use these tactics in Markarth to make sure that the conflict between the Nords and the Forsworn went on forever? The Thalmor intended the White-Gold Concordat to be a poisonous apple for the Empire by bringing conflict from within. But why this didn't work initially, it's because the citizens were not inconvenienced enough. As much as they complained, they stayed loyal to Empire, and the citizens were willing to understand the political necessity of the peace treaty and agreed that peace was worth the price of ban on Talos worship. The Thalmor realized that they needed to back the Empire into the corner. Citizens would only start rebelling if the Empire did something pretty horrible against the Talos worshippers. The troubles in Markarth provided this opportunity. Now let's stand back from this scene for a moment and look at the wider strategic situation from the Thalmor point of view. The Great War has been disastrous for the Dominion. In short terms, they got all the concessions they wanted out of the Empire. However, the Empire is unlikely to make more than a token effort to enforce a prohibition on Talos worship. And while both sides are rebuilding their forces for a renewal of hostilities, the fecund human are likely to be ready long before the Dominion. So they needed two things. One, they need a way to compel the Empire to allow the Thalmor to police the tombs of the Concordat. And two, they need something to bleed the Empire's strength while the Dominion rebuilds without interference. Elenwen looks at Ulfric's adventures in the Reach, sees a way to kill two birds with one stone. Jarl Hrolfdir is desperate to retake his throne. Without Markarth, he is nothing. He represents the Empire's authority in the Reach. However, the Empire is unable to dispatch his legion to the Reach at the moment due to their involvement in post-Great War matters. Ulfric, after his capture by the Thalmor and the shame of his defeat during the interrogation, which to him led to the Imperial city's capture, he was on a path to restore his honor however he could. With his Nord militia, he overthrew the Forsaken rebels. So the city is liberated, and shortly after that, Elenwen seizes an opportunity to leave her post temporarily and report to Thalmor superiors, who then file a formal protest with the Empire. The Legion is then tasked with reclaiming the control of Markarth. Ulfric's sense of pride and honor plays a significant role here. He had promised the people of Markarth the freedom of worship as they pleased, and he is determined to uphold his promise. He refuses to open the city gates to the Legion without the guarantee of continued free worship. However, the Legion cannot agree to these terms, as it would risk sparking another war with the Thalmor, and the Legion commander who accepted such terms would likely jeopardize their careers as well. This stance creates a significant conflict and complicates the situation even further. Ulfric afterwards was seized and accused of willfully violating the terms of the Concordat. There would also have been a Thalmor contingent there to confirm the full justice done. We can imagine that Elenwen might have been among them. She has just given the Dominion the leverage it needed to demand the Thalmor to be allowed to police the tombs of White-Gold Concordat, and started smoldering a spark that will eventually be fanned into the civil war. Imagine her standing there, newly promoted, and wearing her full Thalmor regalia. We can only imagine Ulfric's renewed horror and sense of betrayal by the Empire and rising anger.
And I'm here to tell you, 1776 will commence again if you try to take our
Talos.
Doesn't matter how many lemmings you get out there on the street begging for them to have their
God
taken. We will not relinquish them. Do you understand?
If Ulfric wanted to rile his people to start a rebellion, this would have done it, which, if true, would make Ulfric a pretty manipulative bastard. But this is contested matter, considering Ulfric is no strategic mind. From there, Ulfric goes to jail and is eventually released after the death of his father, which is when he takes up the role as the Jarl of Windhelm.
My father, the Great Bear of Eastmarch, died during my imprisonment after the Markarth Incident. I, his only son, forced to deliver his eulogy via letter I had smuggled out of prison. Such is the love of Titus meat for his subjects. When finally set free, I returned to Windhelm and was greeted by a city in mourning, at one with my own grief and anger, clamoring in angry voices, calling out for justice, for war. They sat me on the throne of Ysgramor, the throne of my father. I only hope I can prove worthy of that honor.
The Empire will do nothing, not that he would go begging for their aid. The Thalmor are treacherous and deceitful, and there is nothing to be gained from talking to them. But unilateral action will only invite retaliation against Windhelm from the Thalmor and their imperial puppets. If action is to be effective, he thought, it must be the action of Skyrim as a whole. As far as we know, no authority opposed his accession to Windhelm's throne, and according to Sybil Stendor's dialogue, he was a member of the moot that crowned Torig as the High King.
But Ulfric was at that moot, continually talking about Skyrim's independence in terms just shy of treason.
Her words and other dialogues throughout the game suggest that Ulfric had been campaigning for their independence long before the Civil War, and that is why people at Solitude did not worry too much when he came to Solitude demanding to see Torig, thinking the Bear of Markarth just wanted to argue with the king about the issues. Ulfric and most of Tamriel see Titus Mead as an old man who surrendered everything to the Thalmor. Signing the White-Gold Concordat was by all means insult to all the citizens of Empire and their values. They took away their freedom of worshipping Talos, who is still the founder of the Empire and hero of man. By doing so, they denied everything the citizens of Skyrim sacrificed to defend and die for. Men went into battle, fought and died only to be forced to abide by the rules of a foreign people and be executed for believing in things that are as old as the Empire itself. By taking that from them, the Thalmor destroyed everything that Nords have been taught for generations, and anyone would rebel under these conditions. And seeing how Hammerfell seceded from the Empire, the Nords were only encouraged to do the same. Not only is the Empire unable to fight off the foreign invaders, it is also incapable of defending their own citizens and their rights. And from the eyes of every citizen, the Empire is corrupted at the top.
Look around the room and you'll see what we're up against. Just between you and me, a lot of what Ulfric says about the Empire is true. That's putting it mildly. The Thalmor invite me here to remind everyone that they can tell the Empire what to do. I would refuse, but I don't want to jeopardize the peace between us.
I hope that we have all come here in the spirit
You insult us by bringing her to this negotiation? You're Chief Talos Hunter?
That didn't take long.
Here, here.
I have every right to be in this negotiation. I need to ensure that nothing is agreed to here that violates the terms of the White-Gold Concordat.
She's part of the Imperial delegation. You can't dictate who I bring to this council.
As for you, General Tullius, I see now that Galmar was right. Talking to the Empire is just as useless as ever. If you think you can hold Markarth, you're as deluded as your Emperor when he signed away our freedom to the Thalmor. Skyrim will never again bow to your false empire. Let's go, Galmar. I should have listened to you in the first place.
Ulfric knows that the Empire is not the united front against the Thalmor that they claim to be. Cyrodiil will sell out every province to keep the real power centralized, just like how they did with Hammerfell, and so Ulfric liberating Skyrim would just be stopping the bleeding. Cyrodiil returned all troops from Morrowind during the Oblivion Crisis to protect itself, leaving them to die during the period and also during the Red Year. Cyrodiil gave away half of Hammerfell during the White-Gold Concordat to the Almeri dominions. When the rest of Hammerfell objected, they sided with the Thalmor and cut off the Hammerfell from the Empire. Additionally, they disbanded the Blades and allowed Thalmor agents to hunt them down across the Empire. While the Empire claims these actions are temporary measures to appease the elves in preparation of a future war, some view it as a willingness to sacrifice and betray provincial holdings and power to maintain the Imperial city's independence on paper. From Ulfric's perspective, he sees the Thalmor as a constant threat to the Imperial city and believes that the Imperial court is giving away the entire empire to the Thalmor, effectively turning it into a puppet state. He points out that every time he's tried to defend Skyrim, the Empire has sided with the Thalmor and given up more rights of Skyrim's people. By the time the game starts, the Thalmor have already established a fortress-like embassy at the Imperial province, which hosts influential economic figures from Skyrim. They have stationed a Thalmor commander in the wealthiest city in the province, freely operated agent who kidnap and kill without restriction, and also have infiltrated the land with spies. Ulfric does not view this as a cold war between Empire and Thalmor. Instead, he sees it as a subtle invasion by diplomats, with the Empire being overmaneuvered in every negotiation. And that's it for this video. I hope you gained some insight and enjoyed your time here. With that, I'd like to remind you to like and subscribe, and if I've been unclear and inaccurate in any ways, please feel free to let me know down in the comments. Otherwise, may Talos guide you, and I'll see you in the next one.